The archaeological community was stunned when a team based in southern Iraq announced a remarkable find, one that stands to unlock the secrets of one of humanity's most important ancient civilizations. Many experts can't accept this discovery at face value simply because it seems too good to be true. But it's the real deal. An ancient temple from the lost Sumerian city of Girsu. Experts unearthed a 4,500-year-old palace in Iraq, and it could hold the key to a lost civilization. Dr. Sebastian Ray was the person leading the excavation that uncovered the palace. Yet despite this man's eminently impressive academic and professional credentials, many of his peers found it difficult to take his claims seriously. Some nasty accusations were even made against him, implying that he'd been lying about the whole thing. Following the discovery, Dr. Ray traveled around the world to attend numerous conferences. He tried to convince his fellow experts of what he'd found, but at first he simply wasn't believed. As he recalled to The Guardian, "Everyone basically told me, 'Oh no, you're making it up, you're wasting your time, you're wasting British Museum UK government funding,' that's what they were telling me." It seems many experts were reluctant to believe this palace really had been built by the Sumerians in Girsu. After all, these people had belonged to one of the earliest civilizations in human history. How could a palace which was raised some 4,500 years ago survive this long? Well, it had. And maybe it can tell us more about those mysterious people who built it. The palace itself is obviously a big deal for archaeologists and historians in its own right, but the building also contains something incredibly significant. Inside lay 200+ tablets bearing cuneiform script. These slabs, it seems, were records relating to the administration of ancient Girsu. They can help experts to understand the specific ways in which this civilization functioned. Learning about ancient civilizations is always a fascinating and vital endeavor, but the Sumerians are an especially important case. These were people who pioneered so many technologies and ideas that remain central to contemporary life today. The innovations of the Sumerians have had unfathomably far-reaching effects on the world through the millennia. The Sumerians, as the name suggests, lived in an area called Sumer, which itself was part of the wider region of Mesopotamia. It was situated along the Fertile Crescent, enclosed between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. The Sumerians called this area their own for a little under 2,000 years, before they were eventually usurped by the Babylonians. Even in its earliest stages, the people of Sumer were pushing boundaries. The first groups of humans to settle in the region were the Ubaid, who arrived at some point between 4500 BC and 4000 BC. In addition to developing innovative farming techniques, the Ubaid people were carpenters, weavers, and potters. By about 3000 BC, the people we now call the Sumerians had come to dominate the region. Their civilization consisted of several city-states dotted around the territory, such as Lagash, Nippur, and Uruk. This last one boasted a population of anywhere from 40,000 to 80,000 at its height, which would have made it one of the biggest cities on Earth at the time. It was possibly the biggest. Perhaps with so many minds concentrated in such tight urban spaces for the first time, it shouldn't be surprising that so many innovations were made in Sumer. This truly is where the world we'd recognize today began to emerge. Writing, codes of law, vital mathematical formations, and new technologies, so much seems to have emerged here. Without writing, humanity wouldn't have been able to keep records and to administer areas very effectively. And while that's obviously incredibly important, it's also a rather functional way of looking at writing. It says nothing of literature, which is so important to our species. The Sumerians pioneered the form, with the Epic of Gilgamesh, a work which consists of 5 pieces of Sumerian poetry, being credited as humanity's oldest known example of literature. The Sumerians were also keen chemists. They developed medicines, which, while often based on notions of mysticism, could also be quite sophisticated. They understood quite a lot about how the human body works, plus they developed some useful surgical tools. They were even among the first people to make beer. Sumerian ideas are at the heart of civilization today, but more concrete evidence related to their society is difficult to come by. Their region, which is now based within the borders of modern Iraq, is a source of fascination to archaeologists, which is why Dr. Ray was there. He wanted to learn more about Girsu. Dr. Ray is a part of the Girsu project, which seeks to learn about the ancient city and to ultimately protect it. Previous investigations of the site in decades gone past hadn't been up to scratch by modern standards, so in addition to undertaking entirely new excavations, the collaborative project is revisiting older ones, too. The Sumerian city of Girsu has been known about for a while now. It was first stumbled upon 140 years ago. Experts from France played a major part in the first rounds of investigations at the site, with an archaeologist named Ernest de Sarzec leading the first excavation there during the 1880s. More followed in the decades after that. Among the earliest discoveries to emerge from these excavations was something called the Stele of the Vultures. This is a monument which dates back to a period between 2600 BC and 2350 BC, and it memorializes the triumph of a Sumerian city-state called Lagash, which had overcome its neighbor and enemy Umma in battle. This is the oldest war monument we know about today. The stele presents scenes of battle and religious significance etched into its limestone face. There are 7 fragments of the monument in total, but it's thought these were all part of a single piece originally. They're exhibited at the Louvre Museum in Paris, France, these days, which is a long way from home. French archaeologists working throughout the 1920s and 30s also found another structure of great interest. Made of bricks, this construction was about 11 feet tall, 130 feet in length, and 33 feet in width. Nobody was really sure what it was at first, with different people suggesting it might have been a temple, a water regulator, or a dam. It really wasn't clear, which is why the structure came to be known as the enigmatic construction. It took many decades, but the mystery was eventually solved, and by none other than Dr. Ray. By looking closely at bird's-eye imagery of the structure and conducting his own research, he realized a canal had once cut through the landscape here. With that, it became clear the enigmatic construction had actually been the foundations of a bridge over the waterway. While a bridge is a practical structure, it seems clear this one had some sort of religious significance. Some of the stones used in its construction bear carvings on their faces, depicting a deity known as Girsu. Other etchings seem to reference Girsu, who was the son of a king named Gudea who would eventually succeed his father. Beyond the symbolism of the scenes etched into it, the bridge also had a practical association with religion. It seems it would have been used by people taking part in pilgrimages, as it marked an entrance into the city's sacred district. It would have been crossed by people during the various religious festivities that took place throughout the year. According to Dr. Ray, the connection to religion explained why the bridge was so elaborate. He told the Archaeological Institute of America's publication Archaeology that's why the bridge was so monumental. It had the same significance as the temple or a city gate or a city wall. It was built by a king and was meant to be visible in the landscape. The bridge was constructed something like 5,000 years ago, which makes it the oldest known example on the planet. It's an absolutely precious thing, then, which is why experts are so set on preserving it. Such a monument tells us such an important story about early human civilization, and it must be protected. Towards the end of March 2020, reports started to emerge about another discovery that had recently been made at the Girsu archaeological site. This time, it all centered on an area that seemed to have once been used for religious services. Again, the deity Girsu seemed to have been of pivotal importance. Dr. Ray was again at the heart of this work, which maybe wasn't a surprise considering his importance to the Girsu project. A zooarchaeologist named Tina Greenfield also played a big part in all this. She, in fact, was given the responsibility of presenting the team's findings to her peers in late 2019. The team had managed to dig up a lot of artifacts in this area. A large number of ceramics including bowls, cups, jars, and other vessels were found, as were a great many bones belonging to animals. All of these things were found within the vicinity of a pit known as a favissa, which would have been used for ritualistic purposes. Among some of the other impressive items uncovered as part of this dig was a figurine made of bronze. This artifact was duck-shaped, with the added twist of having eyes made from shell. It's possible this item was linked to the goddess Nanj, who was a deity tied to water, marshy areas, and water birds. Other finds were linked to Girsu. Dr. Ray and Dr. Greenfield believe all the cups they had found were likely used during a feast of religious significance before ceremonially being tossed down the pit. All the bones were probably from animals either eaten for the feast or offered up as sacrifices. There were a range of animal bones on the site: cow, goat, sheep, deer, pig, bird, gazelle, and fish. Another interesting feature of the site was the layer of ash that covered it. This may have come from a big fire lit for ritualistic reasons. Elsewhere, 8 vessels filled with spent embers were also discovered. It's thought these things may have been lanterns in their day. All in all, whatever was going on here must have been a well-lit affair. Taken together, all these discoveries pointed towards one thing: some sort of religious cult was active at this spot. In an email to Live Science, Dr. Ray and Dr. Greenfield explained their own thoughts about the excavation site. They think it was once linked to a place where festivals took place and where the population of Girsu gathered to feast and honor their gods. The pair have evidence to back that claim up, as a number of tablets bearing cuneiform text were uncovered at Girsu during the early excavations that took place there. These records outlined the sorts of rituals and feasts that used to go on in the area. They mention one ritual in particular, which was held at 6 monthly intervals and was dedicated to Girsu. The festival lasted for several days, maybe 3 or 4, and covered a fair bit of ground. It involved a sort of religious parade, which would begin in Girsu's center and make its way beyond the city's boundaries. The marchers would then turn back and finish up where they had started. The people of Girsu clearly had some fascinating traditions and beliefs, but there's still so much we don't know about them. That's why every new discovery is met with such excitement, as in the case of Dr. Ray's recent uncovering of a palace. Obviously, many people were skeptical of this find initially, but lots are convinced now. Back in 2021, Dr. Ray and his colleagues at the Girsu project began to utilize remote sensing technology at the archaeological site. The focus of their attention was a part of a location called Tablet Hill. This new equipment was remarkably effective, revealing an intricate complex of ruins beneath the surface. Now the experts knew where to dig, which is how they ended up uncovering this amazing palace. It was constructed from mud bricks, which have since been taken to the Baghdad-based Iraq Museum. But it was within these walls that the most intriguing discovery was made. This was where the cuneiform tablets lay. These tablets will surely be pored over carefully by experts, and who knows what they might reveal. Anything that can tell us more about the day-to-day business of ancient Girsu is an exciting prospect, so these tablets will be treasured. Still, they aren't the only important things this excavation brought to light. Aside from the palace, another fascinating building the excavation revealed was a temple. The structure, it appears, was dedicated to Girsu. From all the discoveries made throughout this site, it seems pretty clear that Girsu played a massive part in the spiritual lives of ancient Girsu's people. Despite the initial skepticism Dr. Ray encountered, many experts are now delighted by his work at Girsu. This place, it is becoming clear, is of vital importance. That can be summed up in the words of Hartwig Fisher, the head of the British Museum. Following a visit to the site, he was quoted by The Guardian as describing it as one of the most fascinating sites I've ever visited. Dr. Fisher went on to explain himself. He said, "While our knowledge of the Sumerian world remains limited today, the work at Girsu and the discovery of the lost palace and temple hold enormous potential for our understanding of this important civilization, shedding light on the past and informing the future." There are several ancient civilizations that really have a grip on people's imaginations, think Rome, Egypt, Greece, and China. For far too long, though, the Sumerian civilization has been overlooked, in spite of its increasingly clear and obvious importance. Perhaps with discoveries such as the ones being made at Girsu, Sumer will begin to get the attention it surely merits. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.